Everyone, I'm Deputy Chief Hank Sortner, Commanding Officer, Detective Borough, Manhattan South. With me today is Captain Alan Barakovic, Zone Commander, and Sergeant Fran DePalma, the Commanding Officer of the 5th Precinct Detective Squad. Earlier this morning, March 12th, at approximately 4:30, police responded to a 1010 calls for help at the corner of King Street and Varick. Police observed a 38-year-old male Hispanic with a gunshot wound to his right forearm. A preliminary investigation determined that this victim, who was apparently homeless, was sleeping at the time when an unknown individual approached him and discharged a firearm, striking him. The victim woke up, made a statement screaming, "What are you doing?" The perpetrator then responded to flee eastbound on King Street to parts unknown. At this point, an ongoing investigation into this incident with extended video canvas is going on. The victim was removed to Bellevue Hospital in not likely condition, and that investigation is ongoing. Fast forward today to about 4:30, the police responded to a 911 call for an aided individual outside of 148 Lafayette Street, which is in the confines of the 5th Precinct. Upon arrival, officers observed an unconscious and unresponsive unidentified male in a sleeping bag in front of the Howard Street entrance of the building. The unidentified male suffered a gunshot wound to the head and neck, and EMS pronounced him deceased on the scene. A preliminary video investigation determined that the unknown individual approached the deceased male at approximately 600 hours this morning before displaying and discharging a firearm at the deceased. The individual then fled westbound on Howard Street. Again, at this time, there are no arrests, and the investigation is ongoing. Any information in regards to the identity of this male people are asked to call NYPD Crime Stoppers Hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS. The public can also submit their tips by logging into Crime Stoppers website as well. We're talking about two individuals that are homeless, the most vulnerable population in the city right now. We have extended no manpower. We have extended no shortage of manpower to get this investigation on track. Anybody, no matter how insignificant you might feel, if you had any kind of interaction in these areas this morning, we strongly encourage you to please report it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I'm here today to send a very clear message that all New Yorkers matters. They all matter. And this is what I believe makes this case so horrific. Watching the video, watching an individual intentionally walk up to innocent people that are dealing with the challenges of homelessness. And it's quite possible that one of our citizens is still alive merely because he woke up. The case is a clear and horrific, intentional act of taking the life of someone that appears because he was homeless. Two individuals were shot while sleeping on the streets, not committing a crime, but sleeping on the streets. A total abandonment and betrayal of trust for this action to have taken place in the manner that it did. The video is chilling to see a cold-blooded act of murder. Homelessness turning into a homicide. We need to find this person, and we need New Yorkers to help us. The images that were put out by the police department may be unknown to those of us who are watching, but is known to someone. We're asking you to look at the video and to give us any information you may have. If you were walking in the area, if you heard the shots, if the face or clothing seemed familiar, if the sneakers he was wearing is something you saw on our train or walking the streets, we need your help to find this person. And this is why we're double down on our efforts to remove illegal guns off our streets. This is a clear case of how there are too many illegal guns on our street. As the police commissioner announced, the neighborhood safety teams will be rolled out on Monday. We're going to double down on our efforts, but we're also going to take extraordinary precaution tonight. We communicated with the Commissioner of Homeless Services. We're going to make sure that we go out in our subway system, as I was last night. We're going to make sure our officers check on those locations where we know undomiciled or homeless people reside or live on the streets. Although it's cold weather tonight and there's a cold blue, we're going to take extra steps to encourage individuals to go into the shelters for safety reasons as well as the current weather condition. I say it over and over again, the prerequisite to our prosperity is public safety and justice. That justice was betrayed tonight, and we are not going to rest until we find the individual responsible for this terrible act of taking the life of an innocent person merely as they slept on the streets. And so we're calling on the public to help us solve this case. The New York City Police Department and the Homeless Service team will be out in the streets to identify if, for any reason, there's an innocent person that's out there that we have not identified already. Thank you. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question. Chief, you mentioned the first victim was Hispanic. Is the second victim, can you tell us anything about it, or is there any hate crime or targeted for not?
Our second victim is African American. At this point, we have nothing that's indicative that would show that they were targeted for their race. The connectivity here is obviously that both gentlemen are homeless.
Was there anything said where it was videos why they were targeted for being homeless, or any motive besides?
The video itself, as the mayor alluded to, is pretty chilling. There were no statements made in either instance. Obviously, we're going to do a secondary interview with our first victim, the survivor. The second individual, unfortunately, is deceased. But at this point, we have nothing that tells us that there were any statements made. They were just approached.
No. In the video the mayor referenced, it appears that at some point there's a second individual somewhere in frame, way down the street, and her moves very methodically. There's no, is that just another random individual? Was that person been identified?
So we're doing extended video canvases right now. We're talking to anybody who we thought they're out there looking to identify. We saw that individual as well in the video. We don't believe that that individual is part of this incident at this point.
Question for the mayor. Seems like every week we come across another crazy act of violence on someone in the city. As a native New Yorker yourself, these concerns of these acts of violence seem reoccurring over and over again. Like today we had this stabbing at the MoMA, we have this thing that are you losing confidence that we could overcome this violence that's been dampening our cities in the last few weeks?
No, and I believe that anyone who's coming to the city for the first time or in government for the first time would have an erosion of confidence. But I was here before. I policed this city in 1984 when we saw a continuous act of violence. And just as the New York City Police Department stood up with the proper actions and consistency, we're going to do it again. Our city will be safe. We're going to rid our cities of guns, but we do need help. We need help on every level of government to send a clear message that the overproliferation of guns on our street is creating a dangerous environment. We are going to do our job, and we have done our job, and we're going to continue to do so. New York City will be a safe city.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, recent history, we've had quite a lot of acts of violence, as the previous question mentioned. A lot, unfortunately, have been demonizing homeless people, mental illness. What would be your message to those who start to, have a pushback against homeless?
The demonization of homeless people is the wrong mindset. There by the grace of God goes I. These are our brothers and sisters who have fell on hard times. We have an obligation to provide them with the services that they deserve, and that is why we have a right to shelter law here in our city. Our goal is to make sure our shelter system is a suitable system as we transition people into permanent housing. Last night, I was on the subway station until 2 a.m. with the deputy commissioner, as we saw far too many people still believe the only act of shelter is in the subway system. We must make sure that does not continue, and that is my commitment and obligation.
Can we just cover, Chief, the outreach going on tonight using patrol resources?
Yes, it's a multifaceted. We're going to be using units from patrol as far as SRG, CRC, our co-response unit that works hand in hand with homeless outreach, as well as our transit units are out there. All the wanted flyers and videos have been mass distributed. We're working with all our squads in Manhattan South. It's not just to Night Watch that will be coming in at midnight to give a hand with the 1st Precinct and the 5th, and as well as our homicide unit. So there'll be multiple units over here, with the main repository being Detective Borough Manhattan South leading this investigation. Certainly.
We believe that they were unknown, the sort of suspects unknown. There's no indication that they were known.
It's true. It's too early in the investigation to state that one way, but from what the video and the physical evidence shows right here, it looks to be random and unidentified.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.